Joe Biden is now the candidate of the Democratic Party to face Donald Trump in this November's presidential election. It's true to say that his coronation was a media non-event because of this global COVID lockdown. So, Miro, what would you say are the key strengths and weaknesses of Biden?
Well, as a pessimist, I'll always start with the concerns and the problems. I think there's a problem here in terms of his campaign during the Democratic primaries was one of a continuum of the previous election. So Biden has positioned himself to warn and create concern about another Trump re-election. This is different because what I thought was quite interesting when you compare it to, say, the hopeful years of the Obama administration. Of course, as people who know me will know that I'm not a particular fan of Obama. I think there's some very questionable decisions and policies made during the Obama administration. But what you see with the Obama campaign was a narrative and a message of hope. You don't see that with Biden. You see one of saying we need to challenge the dangerous and toxic ideas and narratives put out by the Trump administration and those who influence that administration. There's also another problem in which Biden is not a celebrity. Now, again, one of my problems with Obama was that he performed through his presidency. The way in which he performed through his presidency was one of celebrity status, and I think that has contributed to the opportunity then of tolerating celebrity figures within the White House, and this is what I think this is what had contributed towards the success of Donald Trump. Now, this is problematic for Biden because he doesn't adopt that personality status. So, if during the campaign for election of the president, if Biden is not able to take the position of celebrity, and I wish that no politicians would do that. I wish that he takes the position of rational policy decision making, and whilst also raising concerns about the Trump administration, takes one of showing the evidence that sits behind his policy ideas and narratives. I think that will be a way of weakening the argument of Trump during the election campaign. Now, the hope for Biden arguably comes, and this may not be a surprise to you based on our previous conversations, comes from the influence of Sanders. Now, Sanders, of course, has gifted the nomination to Biden by endorsing him, but his continuous presence and his presence throughout the first set of voting in the Democratic Party illustrates the pressure that is placed on Biden from an energized left-wing contingent within the Democratic Party. So you will hope, I would hope to see Biden not only provide a rational, evidence-based decision-making, but couple that with the energy and the enthusiasm of the considerable left-wing contingent within the Democratic Party, and of course those who sit outside the Democratic Party, in order to prioritize the notion of healthcare, climate change, and workers' rights, three areas which have severely been damaged by the Trump administration. And I think that is where his opportunities, windows opportunities to influence the presidential race is. Now, of course, there's a question about not voting for Biden at all, and you saw through the Clinton election that many people turned against Hillary Clinton and therefore refused to vote. And this is not just me making this argument; others have made it all. If you choose not to vote, then you're essentially gifting your vote to a Trump re-election, which again is deeply toxic and problematic. Those who have a problem with the election system in America, well, that's something that needs to have a continuous debate and restructuring, which will take a number of years to achieve. It can't be achieved in one election cycle, and therefore we have to think about the consequences of Trump for the next few years, but also the opportunities to improve certain aspects of society under the Biden administration, which will not be perfect at all. And we recognize that it's going to be pro-business. We recognize that there's going to be a considerable amount of lobbyists associated with liberal economies within his administration and within Biden's closest circle. But at least it presents a better alternative to one which is surely to be devastating and considerably distressing to communities in the US, but also to the broader global population as well, if Trump was to be re-elected.
Well, there's a lot to discuss as a result of your answer, Miro. In terms of the candidate himself, I think Biden is a poor candidate, and I think in November we're going to see, I think, the oldest two candidates ever put before the American electorate, and I think that's going to make age a factor. And I think in that context, Biden is already looking old. Of course, we don't want to endorse ageism, but I think the vigor of the candidate is going to be important in this election. And I think Donald Trump, whatever you say about him, he's very good at looking vigorous and also attacking his rivals for their lack of vitality. And I think that's going to be a very important political weapon for him in the next election. You also talked about the kind of themes that the Democrats could use to energize their base. You talked about healthcare, climate change, and workers' rights. I'm not certain that those are going to be wedge issues that are going to allow a successful Democratic candidate to appeal to those voters who voted for Obama, or who maybe voted for Obama but deserted Clinton and voted for Trump. The electoral politics you talked about the electoral system in the United States. The electoral United States, that it's states like Ohio that need to be won, and I think the Democrats, they need to avoid the political trap of just saying vote for us or vote for Biden because he's not Trump. I think that's be really dangerous, and also I can see how that's going to be really seductive as well, because from this distance, the American electoral map just seems to be about which candidate can mobilize, and it's a he, which candidate can mobilize his base in the most effective way. So it's almost as though if you can bring your base, if you can bring your constituencies to the polls in greater numbers than your opponents, then you don't even need to think about that middle ground, the famous floating voter. You don't need to think about that person. It's just a way of energizing your base. And I think Trump is better at energizing his base than Biden will be.
Also, no, I just come on that. I agree with you in terms of the way in which Biden has well, indeed, the broader Democratic Party has set out their agenda. They have undoubtedly gone down the line of what we offer is something better than Trump, which again plays, as you said, plays into the hands of Trump and his campaign strategy. And again, this is what you saw with the way in which they selected the candidates, because Warren and Sanders were offering really energizing, invigorating, challenging ideas around the education system, around tackling climate change, thinking about social rights for people, opportunities for young people, and of course those who've been disengaged from the political system. And of course, the Democratic Party went through a bizarre and ridiculous system of getting all the moderates to consolidate around one, effectively, stopping the significance of votes to Warren and to Sanders, and this has now led to where we are now with Biden. I think Biden has got a real problem in the way he's going to articulate his campaign, because, as I said, there has been no message of hope. there was also leading up to the time when Sanders decided to endorse Biden. You could see at that point that many people were not very clear on what Biden was offering as an alternative to Trump, other than vote for me because I'm not Trump. So I think this is where we have a real dangerous situation. I think Biden's team has to play it very differently, particularly when they go into the debates with Trump, because my view is that they have to prioritize the alternative, illustrating why the alternative is preferable, and also illustrating the evidence to back up why the alternative is realistic as well. And I think that is arguably the effective way to destabilize Trump's position, not to play into the ideas of the celebrity, which is what Obama did through his administration, which I said before, I think has contributed to Trump's popularity and the significance of having another celebrity popularity figure in the White House as well. So I agree with you on that situation as well. I think the key thing is when they go into the debates, and one can argue whether the kind of televised debates are influential or not. There's literature to argue either way on that. But what I would say is that Trump has no clear ideology, political ideology underpinning his views. His administration is influenced by the agenda of people outside of that and the lobbyists outside of that who are pro-business, who are neoconservatives, some of which are neo-fascists. One could argue based on the decisions that are being made, and they are considerably to the right of any other right-wing government that's been in charge of America. Now, this is why you can destabilize Trump, because there is no clear ideology that underpins the rationale for his decision making. So that's why I think that if Biden moves to a position of saying what are the concerns about another 4 years, and do that shortly, but just make sure it's stated, but then spend the considerable amount of the election period on arguing for the alternative, that is a much better way of trying to reclaim ground in order to win the election, which is no guarantee for Biden at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you that for the moment, the campaign, the Biden campaign, is not doing a very good job of projecting hope, and hope is essential to American politics. We can see certainly in the campaign of Obama, as you mentioned, but also going back to Clinton, the man from hope. I mean, it was almost in the branding, and of course to Reagan. How much optimism is an essential political ingredient. There's a couple of things I want to just underline. You point to Sanders and the role of the left. Whilst we can agree that some of that it's important for it's important for democratic politics that there is a debate, and that the established candidate doesn't just have a sort of a 16-month coronation. That there is a discussion about what are the principles that will underpin a future democratic administration. It is also possible to say that the role of Sanders has been poisonous. It was poisonous to Clinton, and it's going to be poisonous for Biden, in the sense that it's going to push. It could push Biden more in the direction of the not Trump point of view, more in the direction of the sort of policies that are likely to win favor amongst that already engaged, energized base. So, for example, free college education for everybody who wants it, and all the discussions that derailed the Warren candidacy around trans issues and other issues. That Biden will be so beholden to those constituencies that he will not be able to project himself as the competent president who can appeal to the South and the Midwest. Again, key areas in the electoral politics of the United States, and that's my concern, that the that Trump has been so good at energizing his base, but also energizing those people who profoundly disagree with him, that that this will be a poison chalice for Biden. And my last point is a kind of rebuttal for your argument that Trump has no ideology. I disagree. I think he does have an ideology, and I think this is understated. His ideology is the ideology of retrenchment. There are many strategists. For me, Peter Zayin is the most notable, who predict that the United States will, irrespective of the candidate, will enter into a period of deglobalization, which is to say, the United States will pull away from its global role, that it will decide that being the policeman of the world, the guarantor of all of the shipping lanes, all of maritime commerce, all of the pillars on which the global economy has been based, will no longer be in the interests of the United States. That the United States is already self-sufficient in terms of food, self-sufficient in terms of energy, and the dominant player in the financial markets, that it doesn't really require the kind of engagement on the global scale, that on the international scale, that was necessary in during the Cold War and in the early 90s. And that this plays very much to the political ideas of Donald Trump and those people around him. And that going to an electorate saying more retrenchment, less migration, America first, make America great again, it worked last time, and there's no reason to think it won't work a second time, given the weaknesses that we've already acknowledged in the Biden campaign. That said, it may well be possible to say that when we get closer to election day and we see the fallout from the COVID pandemic, that Americans may well see the flip-flopping of their current president as being a reason to ditch him in favor of somebody who can offer competence, pragmatism, and a kind of an adult approach to the issues of the day.
Well, just to come back on that, although I'm conscious of time. Firstly, I think you've set up the next discussion for a podcast on the idea of, does Trump have a particular ideology underpinning his decision making? I think we can save that for another time. Two quick points I want to make. Firstly, going back to the Sanders and Warren point, I don't think it's poisonous. I don't think we should see Sanders' involvement as distraction. I think what it provides is a mechanism for Biden to, when he eventually gets to the position of outlining specific ideas of policies in a coherent way, in a consistent way, then what you will have with the influence of Sanders and particularly of Warren more broadly is a desperate need to articulate the ideas and demands of the campaign within the personal experience. So it's almost the reversal of the sociological imagination, because what you want to have is, the way in which we should understand how society works and how society is organized is to take our personal experiences and put them in a broader political, social, historical, economic context. What Biden needs to do is reverse of that and take his ideas, which are broad, and illustrate what they mean to people in their everyday experience. And I think that is what you were finding with Sanders when he was talking about education policies, when he was talking about the role of climate change, the need for intervention around climate change, when he was talking about issues of workers' rights. This is what Biden needs to do in order to gain traction within those variety of states that have differing needs. But saying that, I think that as on the current trajectory of things, and this will be my last point because I'm conscious of time, but on the trajectory of where we're going currently with Biden and Trump, I would be surprised if Biden was to win the election.